everyone, I am back with another book review. It has been 4 months since the last one. Uh, and if you want to know why, take a look at my last video. I hit a slump. It explains pretty much everything as to why I wasn't reading at all. And yeah, we will get into. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about a book. And what book are we here to talk about? We are here to talk about Visitor's Blood by Sahreth Baphy Bowden. Yes, Sahreth Baphy Bowden. Yay! Quit not remembering names very well. Yeah, so. Let's get into this review. Might be a little rusty. Like I said, I haven't done this for 4 months. Off of coming out of it, doing this fairly consistently, so. Let's see how it goes. Plot. Basically, the plot of the book is these aliens crash down to Earth. They look like people. I mean, they obviously come from different cultures and stuff like that, because how crazy would it be if cultures evolved in the exact same way to be the exact same thing, so on and so forth. I mean, I would have probably call bullshit on that one. But they don't. They are capable of speaking English, or at least two of them are capable of speaking English due to learning. They figured out English is the more dominant language. It's supposed anyway. It is in more countries than most other languages, so I guess that does make sense. Anyway, they crash down to Earth and they're immediately picked up by military. They're taken off to this base. Or at least the main alien, Maluk, is taken off to this base while the military tries to break its way into the spaceship. So Maluk is off being questioned, as one would expect. When they do manage to break into the spaceship, the soldiers kind of get wholesale slaughtered by a vampire. Well, quote-unquote vampire. That's kind of the term for it, so on and so forth. Moving on. So there's hijinks ensuing, all sorts of bloody hijinks ensuing, before the aliens actually make it back to the spaceship with the two main human characters on board. And they end up going to the alien home planet of Galadalier. I think I pronounced that right. And they have to kind of assimilate themselves into the alien culture, which is really not too hard to get into and too hard to really work out, because, I mean, they do kind of work things the same way as people here on Earth. There's some very strong differences, especially in terms of mannerisms and stuff like that, and what's considered rude and what's not, so on. Yeah. But one of the biggest things is the vampires are considered as second-class citizens. They're basically almost lower than the low. The only people who are lower than the vampires are the people who don't work. Which, kind of makes sense, I suppose. So the whole bigotry thing does not really go over well with the human characters. Because, I mean, they're good people. So, the whole bigotry thing just doesn't go over well. And it shouldn't. Make sense. And, yeah, it's basically just, after about the halfway point, it's these humans just dealing with what's going on this the alien home planet. And how it ends, I'll get to that at the ending part. So, the plot was pretty twisty-turvy, and it did keep me guessing in a lot of places. It was a little predictable every once in a while, but for the most part, I was pretty pleasantly enjoying it. So I'm going to give plot a 4 out of 5. It does a really, really good job. It's just a little predictable in some spots. Not very many, but just a few. Characters. There are 4 perspective characters, 4 point of view characters in this book. John, the military major. Connie, his wife, who is a doctor. Maluk, the main alien man. And Sulru, the vampire. And these characters are very distinct and very, very different ways, and they seem very real in a lot of their interactions. John has a bit of a tendency to be a little bit of a hothead sometimes and can kind of jump the gun as to what's going on. Connie can be a bit of an airhead, but she's such a sweetheart. She is such a wonderful person. Maluk is probably the most one dimensional the of the four of them, and that's not to say he is one dimensional. Like, he definitely has a lot of depth and character to him, but he's kind of got that bit of a one track thing going on where he is a vampire, a vampire. What's the word? Egalitarian. He's basically an egalitarian. He wants vampires to be equal and free, which, all on board for. And yeah, that's basically his biggest thing. Oh, and also just not trying to. What am I trying to say here? Trying to rekindle his family, despite the sake that his wife is a raging cunt. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way I can put that. And Sulru is actually my favorite character in the book. She is kind, but she's strong. She is a deadly, deadly, deadly warrior, and even as far as other vampires go. But also, she's this single mom who just works and does all this other wonderful stuff, and she's just a really good character. And yeah, I know this all seems like so, this is a very woke character, and oh, social justice, blah 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 blah. But really, when you read the book, it doesn't come across that way at all. She just seems like a very, very rounded character. Probably, in my opinion, probably the most rounded of all the characters, despite the fact that none of the characters are particularly flat. Are we good? Do we understand all that? So, characters get 5 points. Alright, research and imagination. Holy Christ, how much imagination and research went into this book. I can't even begin to fathom just how much this guy just delved into every little aspect of what he was getting into. Like, I don't doubt for a moment that he studied culture to figure out how things would evolve. I have no doubt that he studied basic evolution. I have no doubt that he studied almost as much as he possibly could to get to this book as good as it is, and as real and as just logical. Everything was very logical. Everything was very, and even in the points where the humans are acting illogically, it was the logical decision to make them act illogically in this at certain perspectives. It was just very, very, very well done, and I am so impressed. It's not something I see to this caliber very often. And while I'm not willing to set the bar that high, because frankly very, very few would ever pass it, they definitely set their own bar that high. Or he definitely set his own bar that high. So writing and imagination definitely gets a 5 out of 5. Hands down, no questions. Writing. Oh, writing. The part of the review that just doesn't take very long, because there's not really much I can really say about writing in it, like the writing in and of itself. Unless a book is particularly poorly written, then, I guess. This one, on the other hand, is not poorly written. This one is actually very, very well written. There does seem to be a lot of commas in some places, like it's almost James Joyce level commas. And yeah, and just in a couple spots there were some points where I had to go back and reread a little bit, and some of that I've got no doubt is my skim reading style of reading, but for the most part, it was very, very well written, and I definitely got the gist of what was going on fairly easily and without any sort of real struggle. The story was just very well written. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's just really well done. And finally, the ending. The ending was predictable in some places, and some spots I did not see coming at all. if you do not want any spoilers, go to this time. Are they gone? Okay, so the ending. Maluk, Connie, Sahreth, and John all get captured. Not because of this whole vampire rebellion thing, the whole rebellion uprising, whatever. No. It's because they went to Earth and picked, and, well, they don't know that, Earthlings got picked up, but there's just a lot of questions going on. And yeah. Sahreth basically puts a plan together and really does some smart thinking and decides to not try and break out Maluk, to not try and break out Connie, but to try and break out John. John was the only one who had any sort of forged documents going toward his name because he would need it to work, of course. And Gik sort of just made him look like he was a bad person, just like the ship going in a whole different direction made Sahreth look bad. So Sahreth escapes and frees John, and then they go on the run, freeing Maluk and Connie by the eyes of the law, and yeah, that's kind of where it ends. So all in all, the ending was, yeah, there were some points where it was pretty predictable, and there were some points where I definitely did not see what was going to happen coming, but for the most part, it just kind of ended really suddenly. And while I know that there is a second book out, and I definitely look forward to reading that one, for the most part, it's just sort of a sudden stop ending, and it's a me preference. I don't really care for sudden stops. I do kind of like a bit of a wind down. But, for the most part, that's really all I have against it. Like, just that it is a sudden stop. From everything else, it was predictable in the ways it needed to be, and unpredictable in the ways it did, in the ways that it needed to be. So, yeah, I'm gonna give ending a 4 out of 5. Like, it definitely hit all the right spots. It was just a little too sudden. I'm not entirely sure what more could have been done. It was just a little sudden. That's really all it comes down to. Alright. So, all in all, Visitor's Blood gets an 8.5 out of 10. Really good book. Very enjoyable read. I definitely greatly enjoyed it. I look forward to reading the second book. It's going to be a little while, of course, just due to the number of books I have ahead of it, and frankly, this one probably shouldn't have been read at the time that it was, because I definitely had other books ahead of it, but I kind of really wanted to read this one. And I was not disappointed. I definitely would recommend this one to anyone who likes sci-fi, vampires, just general stuff like that. If you're into anything like that, then you're going to enjoy this book. But that's all I got for now. Let's not wait another 4 months before I do another review. Alright. Have a good one, folks.